Why does Python use else after for and while loops? I understand how this construct works. But I don't understand why else is used as the keyword here, since it suggests the code in question only runs if the for block does not complete, which is the opposite of what it does. No matter how I think about it, my brain can't progress seamlessly from the for statement to the else block. To me, continue or continue with would make more sense, and I'm trying to train myself to read it as such. I'm wondering how Python coders read this construct in their head, or aloud, if you like. Perhaps I'm missing something that would make such code blocks more easily decipherable. This question is about the underlying design decision, i.e. why it is useful to be able to write this code. See also else clause on Python while statement for the specific question about what the syntax means.
Because they didn't want to introduce a new keyword to the language. Each one steals an identifier and causes backwards compatibility problems, so it's usually a last resort.
It's a strange construct even to seasoned Python coders. When used in conjunction with for loops, it basically means, find some item in the iterable, else if none was found do. As in. But anytime you see this construct, a better alternative is to either encapsulate the search in a function, or use a list comprehension. It is not semantically equivalent to the other two versions, but works good enough in non-performance critical code where it doesn't matter whether you iterate the whole list or not. Others may disagree, but I personally would avoid ever using the for else or while else blocks in production code. See also, Python ideas, summary of for, else threads.
A common construct is to run a loop until something is found and then to break out of the loop. The problem is that if I break out of the loop or the loop ends, I need to determine which case happened. One method is to create a flag or store variable that will let me do a second test to see how the loop was exited. For example, assume that I need to search through a list and process each item until a flag item is found and then stop processing. If the flag item is missing, then an exception needs to be raised. Using the Python for else construct you have. Compare this to a method that does not use the syntactic sugar. In the first case, the raise is bound tightly to the for loop it works with. In the second, the binding is not as strong and errors may be introduced during maintenance.
There's an excellent presentation by Raymond Hettinger titled Transforming Code into Beautiful, Idiomatic Python, in which he briefly addresses the history of the for else construct. The relevant section is distinguishing multiple exit points in loops starting at 1550 and continuing for about 3 minutes. Here are the high points. The for else construct was devised by Donald Knuth as a replacement for certain go-to use cases. Reusing the else keyword made sense because it's what Knuth used, and people knew, at that time, all for statements had embedded an if and go to underneath, and they expected the else. In hindsight, it should have been called no break, or possibly no break, and then it wouldn't be confusing asterisk. So, if the question is, why don't they change this keyword, then cat++ probably gave the most accurate answer. At this point, it would be too destructive to existing code to be practical. But if the question you're really asking is why else was reused in the first place, well, apparently it seemed like a good idea at the time. Personally, I like the compromise of commenting #nobreak inline wherever the else could be mistaken, at a glance, as belonging inside the loop. It's reasonably clear and concise. This option gets a brief mention in the summary that Bjorn linked at the end of his answer. For completeness, I should mention that with a slight change in syntax, programmers who want this syntax can have it right now. Asterisk bonus quote from that part of the video, just like if we called lambda make function, nobody would ask, what does lambda do?
If you watch the book channel, please consider liking and subscribing.